A middle-aged Sikh man sits on the train that stopped at the Pathankot railway station, and a stray feather flies in and falls into his diary, which contains the photograph of the woman he loves. He shuts the diary, suspending the feather inside it, and smiles to himself optimistically. A woman finds her seat and sits from across him while an old teacher is sitting with his students in the compartment beside them. The man, Lal Singh Chaddha, starts humming to himself and giggling randomly, which creeps the lady sitting across her. She watches him open a box of snacks that aren't very travel-friendly and eat them. He offers her one too out of courtesy and extends the gesture to the students too, but no one accepts. He finally speaks up, sharing that his mother used to compare life to these snacks called the Golgappas. They're so addicting that even if your tummy is full, your heart always craves more. The woman across from him dismisses him and continues using her phone as the whole interaction is very strange. However, he fails to pick up on the awkwardness and introduces himself, complimenting how nice her shoes look. He doesn't get a response out of her but still continues to talk about how his mother used people's shoes to judge their characters. This causes the lady to glance at his shoes, which are very worn out and shabby. He admits that they don't look good but can't deny the fact that he loves them. He still remembers the first pair of shoes that he wore. His mother made him believe that they were magic shoes as they allowed him to walk as a kid. What's unusual is that the doctor found no faults in his legs and was sure that the reason why he couldn't walk was a mental fault. Lal begins talking about his childhood. He got his name from his grandfather who went to war and passed away a martyr the year he was born. None of his grandfathers had ever returned alive from any of the wars they'd fought. Lal's mother was very proud of them and named her son after them. His mother is an independent and self-sufficient woman who taught him that he can do everything by himself. She teaches him that there's beauty in him being different and he doesn't need anyone's help. Little Lal admires the way his mother explains everything and manages their farm all by herself. They live in his mother's family home, a small village near Pathankot named Karoli. No matter how much his mother wants him to feel as worthy as all the other kids, the world is set to prove her wrong. The English medium school refuses to let Lal enroll because of his low academic performance. But she sees that the priest who runs the school needs a maid and volunteers to do chores around his house. This surprises the priest, who learns that Lal's father works abroad and that she's willing to work as a maid even though she appears to be from an affluent family. The priest finally gives in after observing the extent she's willing to go to for her son's education, and enrolls Lal in his school without getting anything in return. Lal's first day of school was the scariest and the best day of his life. His mother instructs him to work very hard and push himself to be the very best he can as she drops him to school. Lal insists she stay, just for today, so she agrees to sit on the bench and wait for him until school is over. The commotion in the classroom quiets down the moment little Lal walks in with his leg braces. All the kids stare at him and no one lets him sit with them. Even as a grown man, Lal vividly remembers the sweetest voice he heard in his life for the first time. A young girl with the prettiest face invited him to sit with her. She asks him about what's wrong with his legs and he answers that he's completely fine. The young girl named Rupa laughs at his naive answers and it warms his heart. She also lives in Karoli and they become friends that day. He hasn't talked so much with anyone except his mom and they're practically inseparable by now. They teach other skills they know and she becomes her favorite person in the world. One day, they're sitting on a tree waiting for the stars and Rupa avoids going home like always. The day Lal's mother buys the first TV in their village, everyone comes over to watch it. That night, Lal catches a firefly for Rupa and asks her to marry him. Fireworks go off at that moment as India wins the Cricket World Cup and everyone cheers. Rupa joins the others and dances with them while Lal watches his best friend from afar. Adult Lal has an audience by now, so he moves to another stage of his life. He and his mother would often visit his aunt Manjeet, who lived in Amritsar. When she welcomes them at the station, Lal and his mother are alarmed by the number of soldiers there. That night, it was a complete blackout that lasted for 5 days. All they could see and hear were explosions, cries, screams, and sounds of bullets fired. The explosions continue for the days that follow and Lal's mother grows upset. She forbids Lal from stepping outside, making up the excuse that there's a malaria epidemic. Lal and his mother didn't go out at all during that visit and Manjeet moved to Delhi the next month. The first time Lal went to Delhi was to visit her. He loves hanging out with his cousin and his friends because they play filmy songs and dance to them. The teenage boys make fun of little Lal, who only moved with his hands, but one of them learned his iconic step from him. That boy grew up to be the superstar we all know today, Shah Rukh Khan. Manjeet shows Lal and his mother around Delhi until they hear the explosions again. Indira Gandhi, India's PM, was shot by 2 of her own bodyguards who were Sikhs. They claimed that they were avenging the invasion of their temple in Amritsar in June. That very evening, Lal and his mother set out to catch a train home. They see a crowd of frantic people running towards their auto rickshaw. The driver, who is also Sikh, tries to evade them, but they catch up and seem to be burning Sikhs. Lal and his mother run through the streets as the driver, who stayed behind, is Lal's mother covers his head with her scarf and hides in the corner of an alley with him while the world around him is set ablaze. Lal's mother whimpers and takes off the cloth from his head. She seeks forgiveness for betraying her religious obligation and cuts off Lal's long hair to ensure his survival. Lal still believes in miracles due to what happened one day when he was a kid. He was walking with Rupa when some kids started to bully him. They throw stones at him and laugh even though Rupa tries to take a stand for him. When the kids don't listen to Rupa, she commands Lal to run. He staggers as fast as he can with his leg braces while his bullies pursue him on their bicycles. Miraculously, his legs start to fall into a rhythm and he runs faster than the wind, freeing himself from his braces. From that day on, he ran to all his destinations. One day, Rupa doesn't come to school, so he runs to her house. There, he finds her sitting outside a room crying because she's terrified. Inside the room, Rupa's father hits his wife and tortures her to get 10 rupees out of her. Both kids can hear Rupa's mother sobbing and repeating that she doesn't have any money to give him. Rupa asks Lal whether he has some money and he feels terrible for not being able to help her. She starts praying to God to make her rich and he joins in until they hear a thud from inside the room. A few hours later, the police arrest Rupa's father for slaying his wife, whose deceased body is taken away right in front of Rupa's eyes. Lal holds her hand the whole time. It turns out that Rupa's mother had married her Christian husband against her parents' will, so Rupa's grandmother cut off ties with them. After her mother's death and father's imprisonment, the police take little Rupa to her grandmother. To Lal's surprise, Rupa's grandmother is Phubi, the maid who works at his house. This strengthened Lal's belief in miracles. Lal is glad that Rupa is going to live with them now, but Rupa remains sad. She has nightmares sometimes, so she comes into the room where Lal and his mother sleep to sleep with them. When they get older, Lal's mother sends them both to a college in Delhi. On their way, they see a huge chariot and gather with the other people to check it out. It was a part of Advani's chariot tour. Even in Delhi, Rupa and Lal stay together. Unfortunately, the kids who bullied Lal also study in the same college as them and still repeat their antics. They throw stones at Lal again, who starts to run in Rupa's direction. This time, they chase him with a car and he runs off into the college's ground where he accidentally wins a track race because he runs faster than everyone else. The coach notices him and recruits him, which leads to him being a top track athlete who only runs and stops on Rupa's command. He goes on to join the National Cadet Corps, where he participates in the parade every year. Rupa, on the other hand, participates in modeling contests every year. Lal has a faint understanding of the fact that Rupa has a boyfriend. One day, their university shut down out of nowhere for a few days. That is actually because of the political crises going on in their country, where VP Singh is being pressured to step down. He walks up to Rupa and her boyfriend, Harry, one day. She wants to get rid of him, so she sends him to get some Golgappas for her. When he comes back with her snacks, he finds Harry trying to kiss her. It's clear that she's uncomfortable, so Lal slaps Harry for bothering her, which leads to their breakup. Rupa is upset with Lal for driving away her rich boyfriend, but knows that he means well. They sit down to eat Golgappas together and he asks her to marry him once again. She explains that she wants to go to Mumbai to become famous and rich. Lal's mother has advised him to join the army, but he doesn't like eliminating people. Rupa ends up going to Mumbai and the state of the country worsens as riots and communal violence become more common. During these times, Lal's mother would call him and warn him to not leave his room for a week because malaria was spreading again. This is the reason why Lal misses his nationals race too, but he never breaks his mother's rules. After getting his bachelor's degree, Lal joins the army, where he gets scolded on the first day. No one wants to sit with him on the bus until one kind man, Bala, offers him some space and friendship. He's a young misfit just like Lal and has a family legacy of running an undergarments business. He plans to open an undergarments business of his own after his time in the army. Lal finds his time in the army extremely easy as he has to follow simple orders. He completes all his exercises easily while Bala keeps talking about undergarments. Bala teaches Lal to make vests. He gifts his first vest to Bala and the second one to the lieutenant until they start making undergarments for everyone. They watch the Miss Universe pageant on TV one day, where Miss India Sushmita Sen wins. This reminds him of Rupa, who he misses terribly. He reads in the newspaper that she has been imprisoned for an obscene shoot, which makes him concerned. So, he takes a leave and goes to Mumbai, where people are protesting against Rupa during her court case. There, he gets into a fight with the people who are shaming and catcalling her. Later that night, he proposes to her again, but she's still more focused on her big ambitions. She makes it clear that they can only be friends. He informs her that he'll be posted somewhere in a few days, and she orders him to be careful and run away from danger. She leaves after hugging him while he promises to write her letters every day. Rupa takes the shortcut to success, where she is introduced to a dangerous and powerful man called Abbas. Meanwhile, Bala and Lal finish their training in 1995, and Bala gets married a year later. Lal hasn't seen Rupa in 4 years and misses her, just like Bala misses his wife and kids as they're on duty right now. Bala asks Lal to be his business partner in the undergarments business he plans to start after serving in the army. He shows Lal his foolproof plan. They're equally optimistic about this and shake hands to seal the deal. The next day, they're sent on a mission in Kargil, where some enemies have entered into their territory. They have to get rid of the enemy, and Bala understands Lal's anxiety because he knows that his friend doesn't like to kill anyone. Bala feels the same way and calls him his brother and perfect partner. Local shepherds inform them of a bunker set up in their territory and come along to guide these Indian soldiers. Lal thinks of his grandfathers, who also must have fought such wars. They locate the bunker and teams get into positions. Bala and Lal are on the center team, which is the attacking team. They take cover behind rocks and make their way up. What they don't know is that the enemy can see them and let them come closer before finishing them off. The Indian soldiers are unaware of the fact that they're outnumbered by the enemy, who unexpectedly opens fire on them. They start to retreat and Lal suffers an injury. Bala comes back for him and instructs him to run, just like Rupa. This triggers Lal, who runs down the hill, but it takes him some time to realize that he's been running alone. He runs back to find Bala but keeps bringing back other soldiers because they ask for his help. He even brings one of the enemy's men down and finally finds Bala drawing his last breath because of his fatal injuries. Lal carries him and runs down the hill, but a bee stings him out of nowhere. He still manages to bring Bala back, who perish in his arms while dreaming of going back home to his family. The war ends after a few days and the Indians celebrate their victory, but Lal can't stop thinking about Bala. The audience listening to Lal's story in the train deduces that he wasn't stung by a bee, but was shot in the bum. Lal recalls how many ice lollies he ate in the hospital during his recovery. He learns that all the letters he wrote to Rupa have been sent back to him. He assumes that she hasn't been home in many days, when in reality she has become Abbas's arm candy, even though he still hasn't launched her career. Meanwhile, Lal goes to Delhi because he's being given an award for saving 5 lives. He can be discharged from the army due to his injury, but until then he can be the assistant coach to the army's running team. Lal's mother is extremely proud of him and calls him back home. That night, he sees Rupa in a car with Abbas and runs after her despite his injury. He follows her all the way to a hotel where he watches Abbas slap Rupa. Furious, he steps in and tackles Abbas, punching him uncontrollably. Abbas is about to shoot him until he notices Lal's army uniform. Rupa also insists that Lal is crazy and doesn't know who Abbas is, so he'll be forgiven. She manages to take Abbas away from him while Lal returns to Manjeet's house feeling conflicted. There, he gets a call from Rupa, who asks to meet him at the India Gate in Abbas' absence. They walk together and she defends Abbas' anger issues because she still hopes he'll make her a heroine. Lal points out that he would have treated her better and that he wanted to be with her. He and Rupa walk and talk together until the morning, when she tells him that she's leaving for Dubai with Abbas. He mentions that she should come back home, but she leaves him again with a hug. He returns to the army, where he travels the world for a year with the running team. One day, he comes across Mohammed, the man from the enemy's side that he saved. He curses him for saving him because now he lives life as a cripple. He lives in a small room. Someone sponsored a phone booth at the airport for him to operate. He takes Lal to his house in Mumbai and remembers that he couldn't go home because his country disowned the people who lost at Kargil. He breaks the news to Lal that he saved the enemy by mistake, who has a doomed fate. Lal buys him a drink and shows him Bala's plan that he intends to carry out alone. Mohammed laughs at him and stays his cynical self while everyone else counts down to a new year. Lal thinks of Rupa and how she must have been spending her New Year's Eve. Beat up and exhausted, Rupa is on top of the rail of a balcony, contemplating. She is about to jump off when Lal's words ring in her ears. She remembers her promise to remain as Rupa forever and steps down from the balcony. She breaks down in tears as the fireworks for New Year's Eve go off. After getting discharged, Lal returns to his village and his mother rejoices. From there, he travels to Bala's village to meet his family. He visits the memorial that Bala's villagers made him to pay his respects. He sets up shop for his business in Rupa's old room with his mother's help. He updates Rupa and Mohammed about the business he's starting through a letter. He fulfills the first stage of the plan concerning him, but they can't market their business in Bala's absence. One day, Mohammed shows up at his village out of nowhere to become the marketing manager for his business. He comes up with the idea of a buy one get one free offer, but that doesn't work, so they stop production. Mohammed gets the idea of removing Bala's name from the undergarments and replacing it with a woman's name to increase sales. Lal knows only one name, so he names his business after Rupa. This seems to work as his business grows exponentially. When his audience on the train listens to this, they all laugh at him for claiming to be the millionaire owner of the Rupa Corporation. But he pulls out a magazine that proves that he's telling the truth. He adds that he split the profits into 2 halves, one of which goes to Bala's family. Mohammed turns out to be the closest friend to Lal after his mother, Rupa, and Bala. He finally thanks Lal for saving him and wonders why he's never seen Lal pray. That's when Lal reveals his mother's idea of how religion causes malaria to spread. He believes that God resides within each of us, which deeply touches Mohammed's heart. He decides to return to his country and open a school that'll stop the malaria of hate spreading there. Lal gives him his blessing and promises to write letters to him. Before leaving, Mohammed hires a lot of smart people to maintain Rupa Corporation. But Lal still misses him, Bala, and Rupa. One day, he gets a call that his mother isn't feeling well, so he immediately rushes back to his village. His mother is old and weak now, but still assures him that everything is fine. She prepares him for the reality that she's about to leave him soon because her time in this world is over now. She teaches him that he has nothing to worry about because death is also a part of life. Lal breaks down into tears and begs her not to leave him, but she can't stay this time, no matter how much she wants to. She passes away due to cancer soon. Lal goes to open a hospital in his mother's name which provides free healthcare to everyone. After his mother's passing, Lal stays back in his village to take care of his farm where he still misses Rupa. Sometime later, she finally finds her way back home and he welcomes her with an earnest hug. She moves into Lal's mother's room where she spends the first few days sleeping. Then, he catches her up on everything and assures her that she doesn't need to worry about money anymore. He can give her all the money she wants now, but she no longer seems to care about money. Even though she seems dim all the time now, Lal manages to make her smile one day. They start to work together in the fields and become a family. She gives him his favorite shoes as a Diwali gift that he's still wearing right now. When he asks her to marry him this time, he knows she'll say no because he's stupid. She clarifies that she can't marry him because she can't be relied upon. Lal walks off from her and it rains heavily that night. She comes to his room and confesses her love for him. They kiss and she wakes up in his bed the next morning, finally feeling safe as the sun rises after many years. But she has to leave while he's still asleep because the police have been after her. They take her away before Lal wakes up and finds himself alone again. Lal finds comfort in running and keeps running until he runs across the whole country. He's unaware that Abbas has been caught by the police after police caught Rupa, who cooperated with them. Abbas gets a life sentence for committing 5 murders and Rupa is sentenced to 6 months in prison due to her cooperation. Lal gets noticed for his running and other people join him because it gives them hope. Lal runs for 4 years, 7 months, 2 weeks, and 3 days until he's tired and wants to return home. He finds his faith back and learns that Rupa wrote to him in his absence. He writes back to her and she calls him to Chandigarh where his train has stopped now. He says bye to all the new friends he made on the train and runs to Rupa's house to meet her. She's pleasantly surprised to see the turban on his head and welcomes him in. She admits how badly she's treated him and herself when her son walks up to them. Lal discovers that Rupa is the mother to his child, Aman Singh Chadha. She mentions that she has an undiagnosed illness and proposes to him. He gleefully agrees and they get married. He cares for her until she succumbs to her illness, leaving him behind with their son, who is Lal's best friend and sole companion.